Howdy. All right, how are you? 450th anniversary once.
advance, follow wheel, on, march. Halt. Just on me.
Happy New Year to you.
Commanders, bring your units to attention. In behalf of the city of Somerville and the Somerville Museum, welcome to Charlestown beyond the neck. Commanders, bring your units to present arms for the Somerville Mayor, Tatiana Valentine.
Rest guard. Relics.
Here. Commanders, bring your units to order arms. Parade, rest, and pay attention to the program. Thank you very much.
Order yard. Parallax.
Order, arms, parade,
Ease. Arch. Clap hands. Stand. Easy.
parade, rest,
Water.
rest.
Good afternoon. I'm Tatiana Valentine, the mayor of Somerville, and I will be your MC for today. Next up, I would like to introduce Reverend Samuel Langdon.
Good afternoon. I am Dr. Samuel Langdon, the 7th president of Harvard College. We are gathered here today under the hand of the Lord. The arm of cruel oppression is sweeping across New England, especially in this colony, and yet this day is dedicated to liberty. Liberty granted to us by the Lord God Almighty. As we give thanks to God that He has given us natural rights, with these natural rights we may form ourselves into a civil society and so provide for our common safety and advantage. The King George recently told us that our love of liberty precludes our love for him, and the King and his ministers will have no talk of liberty. We must keep our eyes fixed on the supreme government of the eternal King who directs all events. This is the first flying of our flag, a new flag for America. This is our America, soon to be bathed in liberty and free from tyranny. May the Lord hear us on this day of display. May He defend us. May He send us help from His sanctuary and give us strength as we set up our banner. For the Lord your God, He that goeth with you, fights with you against your enemy and saves you. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend. The Reverend is portrayed by Matthew Meese. So, good morning, everyone. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Thank you all for being here. Thank you to Colonel Wilworth, the Somerville Museum, and the volunteers who made today possible as we mark this historic 250th anniversary moment here on Prospect Hill. 250 years ago today, General George Washington ordered the first American flag raised right here on Prospect Hill. the months that followed, a revolution became a nation. And this hill became part of the story the world would learn by heart. And the story of this place goes back even further. Before Prospect Hill became a site of revolutionary significance, this land was home to the Pawtucket Band of Massachusetts. And the Somerville we know today lies within the indigenous village of Winnesemmett. We honor that history and the peoples whose voices were too often ignored or erased. Thank you for starting the year here today in the cold with warm hearts and a very real commitment to the city we share. It is now my pleasure to introduce the Massachusetts militia who were present on Prospect Hill during the 1775 and 1776 siege of Boston.
Atop, arms. Drill. Firelocks. Rest on me. Order. Firelocks. Use arms, not hands. Steady.
So I would ask.
I'd like to come again from the Bedford Militia to come forward and address the gathering.
Thank you, Colonel Wilworth. Mayor, by the end of April 19, 1775, thousands of militia had answered the alarm after the British retreat from Concord, and thus began the siege of Boston. In June 1775, as the British prepared to break the siege, colonial leaders ordered fortifications on the Charlestown Peninsula. Colonel Prescott led 1,200 men to build a redoubt, ultimately on Breed's Hill, resulting in a British Army attack on June 17th that took 3 waves of attack. One of the local units, Colonel Gardner's regiment, moved from Leechmere Point across Charlestown Neck to support the fighting. 2 of Gardner's companies, including many Charlestown men, held the stone wall along the Mystic River, where some of the fiercest fighting took place. As powder ran out and the redoubt fell, Gardner's regiment provided cover fire that allowed the retreat from Breed's Hill to Bunker Hill. General Putnam retreated and regrouped on this very ground that we stand today, Prospect Hill, and held the line until the British evacuation in March 1776. Subsequently, in July 1775, General Putnam installed a flagpole from a captured ship's mast on top of Prospect Hill, the highest point outside of Boston, creating a visible point able to be seen by all. I would now like to introduce the units whose lineage was present in the Continental Army during the siege of Boston to have their colors step forward and dip. U.S. Army's oldest units, the Massachusetts East Regiment 101 Engineers, dating back to 1636. The Massachusetts South Regiment 101 Artillery, dating back to 1636. The Massachusetts North Regiment 181 Infantry, dating back to 1636. And the Massachusetts North Regiment 182 Infantry, 1636. The Ancient and Honor Artillery Company, 1638. His Majesty's 10th Regiment of Foot, 1685. The Bedford Minuteman Company, 1775.
Upon assuming command, General Washington assigned Brigadier General Nathaniel Greene of Rhode Island to Prospect Hill. Representing Greene's home unit, the Kentish Guards We'll now hear from Colonel Richard Shericka.
Thank you. Shortly after the Battle of Bunker Hill, Rhode Island's colonial legislature raised 3 regiments with Brigadier General Nathaniel Greene as its commander to aid the Patriots in the siege of Boston. When George Washington took command on July 3rd, 1775, he found much of the army in disarray. But not Rhode Island troops, where he observed strict order and discipline, down to the tent pegs. Impressed by this, he placed Nathaniel Greene in charge of Prospect Hill, the key position in the American line, with 4,000 men, including the Rhode Island regiments, Gardner's regiment, and other local militia. And why were Rhode Island troops so superior at this moment in history? Massachusetts did not lack for brave and strong men, nor for able and experienced leaders. However, Rhode Island had a locally elected governor who supported the local militia, whereas Massachusetts had a royal governor and an oppressive army of occupation, seizing your weapons and ammunition and arresting your leaders. Nathaniel Greene was instrumental in training these free-spirited militia units into an effective fighting force in the now renewed Continental Army. Thank you.
We have tried many different ways to solve our conflicts with other countries, and there seems to be no resolution other than the English war. So, and we get no other option.
Good morning. Anybody cold? Want to sing? First, we're going to hear from the band. They're going to play a little bit of Yankee Doodle, and then we are going to sing it together.
Yankee Doodle!
Father and I went down to camp along with Captain Gooding, and there we see the men and boys as thick as hasty pudding. Yankee Doodle, keep it up, Yankee Doodle dandy. Mind the music and the step, and with the girls be hand. And there we see 1,000 men and rich Squire David, but they wasted every day. I wish it had been saved. Yankee Doodle, keep it up, Yankee Doodle dandy. Mind the music and the step, and with the girls be hand. And there was Captain Washington, and gentle folks about him. They say he's grown so tardy proud, he will not ride without them. Yankee Doodle, keep it up, Yankee Doodle dandy. Mind the music and the step, and with the girls be hand. One more time. Yankee Doodle, keep it up, Yankee Doodle dandy. Mind the music and the step, and with the girls be handy.
Next up, after 8 months of siege, General Lord Howe, British commander, distributed the King's Speech, which declared the colonies in rebellion to every colonial soldier. His Majesty King George III, Delegate Colonel Paul O'Shaughnessy, His Majesty's 10th Regiment on foot, is here to explain the consequences of continued rebellion.
On me, march, march.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this warm reception on this wonderful, warm day. And thank you for the opportunity to be the voice of reason and sanity in these difficult times. If you carry on in this manner, God only knows where it will lead. I bring with me, and I brought, just because it's a tough crowd, I put a little protection in here. I love you too. Ah, sir, good to see you. Mr. Washington. Mr. Washington, to you. I bring with me King George's glorious speech to the combined Houses of Parliament. The voice of reason. From Friday the 27th of October 1775, my lords and gentlemen, those who have successfully labored to inflame my people in America by gross misrepresentations and to infuse into their minds a system of opinions repugnant to the true constitution of the colonies and to their subordinate relation to Great Britain, now openly avow their revolt, hostility, and rebellion. They have raised troops, as you see, and are collecting a naval force, and they have, of course, seized the public revenue. They always do that. Many of these unhappy people still retain their loyalty, yet the torrent of violence has been strong enough to compel their acquiescence, till a sufficient force shall appear to support them. The authors and promoters of this desperate conspiracy, sir, I'm looking at you, have meant only to amuse by vague expressions of attachment to the parent state, protestations of loyalty to me, all the whilst preparing for a general revolt. On our part, the resolutions of Parliament have breathed the spirit of moderation and forbearance. I have acted with the same temper, anxious to prevent the effusion of blood of my subjects and the calamities which are inseparable from a state of war, still hoping that my people in America would discern the traitorous views of their leaders. To be a subject of Great Britain, with all of its consequences, is to be the freest member of any civil society in the known world. The rebellious war now levied has become more general and is manifestly carried on for the purpose of establishing an independent empire. I need not dwell upon the fatal effects of such a plan. The object is too important, the spirit of the British nation too high, the resources with which God hath blessed her too numerous to give up so many colonies which she hath planted with great industry, nursed with great tenderness, encouraged with many commercial advantages, and protected and defended at much expense of blood and treasure. When the unhappy and deluded multitude, yes, shall become sensible of their error, I shall be ready to receive the misled with tenderness and mercy, to remove as soon as possible the calamities which they suffer. I shall give authority to grant general and particular pardons and indemnities, to receive the submission of any province or colony which shall be disposed to do return to its allegiance as if such province or colony had never revolted. What? Have you not heard more reasonable and calming words in your life? Listen to this. These are words of wisdom. Know your place. 3 cheers for His Majesty. God save the King. Hip hip. God save His Majesty.
supposedly the greatest army in the world.
Well, you know your place.
But I think there's some confusion. You see about yourself only law-abiding citizens. For was it not your king who left us to fend for ourselves because he couldn't dare spend the money on a standing army, so he created these militia laws. He required all of us from fighting age to pick up arms to defend ourselves against the enemy, to defend our homes. Well, my countrymen, today the enemy looks a little more familiar, I'd say.
Well, we might want to reconsider those militia laws. Carry on, sir, with your rattle.
I say we keep this new proclamation and burn it!
Well then, I think I'll be leaving. Goodbye.
So please welcome Colonel Lawrence Wilworth, a Somerville native and a member of the Ancient Honorable Artillery Company of Massachusetts.
We don't need undue influence in front of us. On behalf of all the men and women of the U.S. military, past and present, let us extend to you a fraternal greeting for our new year. As it is now winter, let us never forget the harsh conditions and sacrifices of all men and women of the U.S. military that have served you and this nation, both past and present. 250 years ago, in December 1775, the British Army had been besieged for over 8 long months. The patriotic enthusiasm of last spring and summer is now filled with pessimism and a harsh reality, as you just observed. How can a militia army facing the might of Great Britain long persevere? Reconciliation with King George has been unsuccessful and no clear outcome is in sight. The soldiers haven't been paid. Morale is low. It's winter. They want to go home because their enlistments are coming up the end of December. How would it be possible to transform a militia army to a new Continental Army on January 1st, 1776? When the King's speech, referenced earlier, declaring the colonies in revolt, was distributed through the American lines when their enlistments were up, General Washington wanted to hear none of this. He responded by ordering the new flag to be raised at the most visible point, Prospect Hill. Soldiers of the Continental Army did re-enlist. The militia army was successfully reorganized into a Continental Army. Henry Knox, noble train of artillery, arrived weeks later, forcing a premature British evacuation of Boston, the first colonial victory of the Revolution. The pessimism of a month before, within a few short weeks, changed into a firm resolve. The colonists, formerly angry British citizens, have been transformed into independent Americans. This victory and the publication of common sense made independence a feasibility. Today we are honored the units that participated in this great event with their unit colors. We are particularly honored by the presence of the American oldest military units and the 388-year-old Ancient and Honorable Artillery Company of Massachusetts. We are honored our fellow companions, Captain Commanding General William Heath and William Dawes, who actively served in the Continental Army during the American Revolution during the Siege of Boston, 1775 to 1776. I want to personally thank all military organizations here today, as identified earlier, who continued our history, heritage, and tradition. Thank you, and God bless America!
Now we will hear from Somerville's own Major General Richard Johnson, Forscombe Deputy Commander with over 4 decades of distinguished Army National Guard military service.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Everybody relax. It's only going to be 35 minutes or so. Honestly, I'm honored to be here. Friends, neighbors, guests, Mayor, thank you all for gathering here to remember a moment that helped give visible shape to an idea that would change the world. On this ground, here in Prospect Hill, January 1st, 1776, you've heard American forces raise the flag that told a watching world that something new was underway. For me, this hill isn't just a historic landmark, it's personal. I grew up in Somerville, within view of Prospect Hill. As a kid, I saw it every day. It was simply part of the skyline, part of what home looked like. Like many of us, I didn't fully understand what it meant at the time. Only later did I come to appreciate that I had grown up in the shadow of a place where history quite literally raised its head and announced itself to the world. That perspective, that history, is not something distant or abstract, but something you live alongside. It makes today especially meaningful. Imagine this place 250 years ago. I'd imagine that it was a day much like this one. It's winter, the ground is frozen hard. The wind and the cold are numbing. Soldiers stand here like they do today. Many of them farmers, laborers, and craftsmen. Ordinary people who had taken up arms. Not for conquest, but for principle. They couldn't have known that day that just a few weeks later, on March 17th, they'd accomplished what many thought impossible. They forced the British evacuation of Boston. You know the story of Colonel Knox and the cannons that came all the way across the frozen ground, 250 miles from Fort Ticonderoga, to reinforce the siege of Boston. The winter was cold, supplies were scarce, and risk was constant. Risk in the lives of everyone who chose to serve. But the colonists stood firm and they held this ground. Here they stood, knowing that they were being watched. Prospect Hill was chosen deliberately. From here, the Continental Army could be seen clearly. What happened next was meant to be noticed. On that New Year's Day in 1776, the Army raised what we now call the Grand Union flag. 13 stripes represented 13 colonies, united. But in the corner remained the British Union Jack. Now, to our modern eyes, that design might seem contradictory. But revolutions are not born fully formed. That flag captured exactly where the colonies stood at that moment. United in resistance, committed to shared action, but still navigating the final break from British rule. Independence wouldn't be declared until 6 months later. What mattered most that day was not perfection, it was unity. For the first time, American forces stood beneath a single banner. This wasn't just symbolism, it was strategy. It told the British that these colonies were coalescing and coordinating action around a common cause. It told potential allies abroad that something new was emerging. And it told the citizen soldiers standing here that they were no longer fighting as separate provinces, but as one people. This was not a moment of celebration, it was a moment of commitment. They didn't know how long the war would last. They didn't know who would survive it. What they knew was that turning back was no longer an option. Somerville doesn't always appear in bold print in Revolutionary War textbooks. We're not Lexington Green, we're not Bunker Hill, but history isn't made only in famous places. It's made wherever people decide to act. Prospect Hill reminds us that Somerville has always been a part of the American story, not on the margins, but at a critical vantage point, a place where resolve can be seen, where decisions carry consequences far beyond town lines. Standing here today, we benefit from knowing how the story turned out, but the people who raised that flag did not. They lived with uncertainty. They disagreed with one another. They worried about their families, their livelihoods, their futures, and yet they stood. That is the through line from 1776 to now. Democracy has never been self-sustaining. It depends on citizens who participate, who engage, who argue honestly, and who place the common good above personal convenience. That first flag did not represent a finished nation. It represented a promise and a responsibility. That responsibility feels especially close to home here in New England. This region has always punched above its weight, not because of size or wealth, but because of civic culture. Army, that's right, brother. Town meetings, volunteer service, neighbors who show up when something needs to be done, and a stubborn insistence that voices matter. From meeting houses to mills, from shipyards to schoolhouses, from hills like this one to town halls and city halls across this Commonwealth, the habit of participation has been passed down generation after generation. When the flag was raised here on Prospect Hill, it caught the winter wind. Just like that wind that just caught my page in front of me. It wasn't just fabric on a pole, it was a signal that ordinary people were willing to take responsibility for extraordinary ideas. As someone who grew up in Somerville, seeing this hill every day, I can tell you this: history doesn't live only in museums. It lives in the places we walk past, the choices we inherit, and the obligations we accept. So today, let's remember not only what happened here, but what it asks of us. To stay engaged, stay united, even when we disagree. Coming together here on this day reminds us of what unites us. At a moment in our history when we spend so much of our time talking about what divides us. Carry forward the New England tradition of service, participation, and quiet resolve, because the work that began on this hill was never meant to end here. Thank you, and Happy New Year.
This next song is not as well known as Yankee Doodle, but there's still a chance for you to sing along. There are 3 verses, and at the end of each verse, there's a place where I want you to be loud. The first one is, I'm going to say it for you and I want you to repeat it back. Oppose, 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 oppose. Let me hear it.
Good to see you. All right.
At the end of the second verse, huzzah, 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 huzzah.
Huzzah, 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 huzzah.
And the third verse, and fight and shout and fight and shout.
Fight and shout and fight and shout.
You're ready. All right, the band is going to show us the melody up front. The seat of science, Athens, and Earth's great mistress, Rome, where now are all their glories, we scarce can find their tomb. Then guard your rights, Americans, nor stoop to lawless sway. Oppose, 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 my brave America. Torn from a world of tyrants beneath this western sky, we formed a new dominion, a land of liberty. The world shall own their masters here, then hasten on the day. Huzzah, 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 for brave America. Lift up your heads, ye heroes, and swear with proud disdain. The wretch who would enslave you shall spread his snares in vain. Should Europe empty all her force, we'll meet her in array, and fight and shout and fight and shout for free America.
Of course, I was raised here.
Today we honor all who served, free and enslaved, indigenous and immigrant, famous and forgotten. Our next speaker, Sean Osborne, will be portraying Primus Hall, born to enslaved parents and who joined Washington's Continental Army to gain his freedom.
Was so cold last night that it reminded me of back in, what was it? It was December of 1776. And there I was with my fellow soldiers preparing to cross the Delaware River for the surprise attack on the Hessians in New Jersey. This plan had been thought of by the great General Washington, and it was successful. But boy, was it cold. Now, you must forgive me. My wife always says to me, Primus Hall, why must you always tell stories about General George Washington and you? And I say, because I'm just an old veteran, that's what we do. You see, 250 years ago, in January of 1776, I was a 19-year-old new recruit into the Continental Army, and General George Washington was having his first command of the Continental Army. And while serving here, well, not here, was I? Oh, right, I was on Winter Hill. So I was on Winter Hill protecting that fort. And when I wasn't guarding that fort, I was hanging out with my fellow soldiers from the 5th Massachusetts. And of course, we talked and we drank and we talked and we drank. And some of them had fought on April 19th, 1775 in the Battle of Lexington and Concord, and others had fought at Bunker Hill. and I, of course, was the new guy soaking it all in, and they said, well, you know that great guy over there you see, General Washington on his horse? When he first got here in July and he saw this army, he said, what are all those black folks doing with arms? What is going on here? I am no longer in Virginia. And over time, he heard the stories of the black patriots and their heroism. He heard about Prince Estabrook from Lexington, who was shot on Lexington Green in the shoulder and still fought at Bunker Hill. He heard about Peter Salem, who fought at Bunker Hill and fired that famous shot that killed Major McCarran. And he thought, well, maybe I'll be more concerned about those folks in red than with the complexion of the soldiers that are fighting with me. And so then what happens after this great victory here, the siege of Boston? Peter Salem and I and others, we followed the general to New York and that campaign, and then we also fight with him in the Battle of Trenton. And over, what was it? How long was that war? 8 years, right? So over the 8 years of that war, over 2,000 black men from Massachusetts fought as part of the Continental Army. Yes, they're great. But I'm the only one, black, white, indigenous, thank you, who fought with the great General Washington here in Somerville, in New York, in Trenton, and in Yorktown. That's right. That was me.
Yeah!
And you would think, with all of that when it came time for me to get my pension, that would be easy, right? They'd hear my stories, they'd say, oh, what a great guy. But no. First, I had too much money. Can you believe that? Too much land on Beacon Hill. It's true, I did. I had so much money that Ezra, my master, when I was an apprentice, he wasn't doing well. And so I bought a farm in Danvers, and I paid the taxes for him until he died. But you know, as you get older, you lose the ability to make money. And so it was time for me to apply for my pension, and the commissioner of pensions said, no. And they said no again. And then he said no again, because for many reasons. One was, like the mayor said, he thought that I was enslaved, and that enslaved people weren't eligible for a pension, but that wasn't true. You see, my parents, Prince Hall and Delia Hall, they were enslaved. But their master took me before I was 1 year old, and he gave me to Ezra. And Ezra raised me as his apprentice. He was a shoemaker. And I hated shoemaking. So by the time I was 15, I had been released from my contract, and I was a free man. So when I enlisted in April 19th, I did so as a free man. I fought for this country as a free man. So as a free man, as a free man, I went back to the mic. No, as a free man, I appealed the decision to Congress. And Congress heard my testimony and the testimony of the other veterans who fought with me, and they overruled the Commissioner of Pensions, and they gave me $60 a year. Now, I must say that was great then, but you know, $5 a month doesn't go that far. So, after this is all over, yeah, maybe later on today or tomorrow, when you see an old pensioner, that's me, offer me a warm drink and I will tell you some more stories about me and the great General George Washington. Till then, stay warm.
Next, Phyllis Wheatley, the first published African-American poet, was enslaved in Boston when she wrote to His Excellency General Washington in 1775. Her poem praised his leadership while boldly asserting the intellectual and moral presence of Black Americans in the struggle for liberty. We will now hear an excerpt read by Zain Magubeng.
Good morning, friends. I would like to read to you from a poem I have written to honor His Excellency General Washington. Muse, bow, propitious, while my pen relates how pour her armies through 1,000 gates. In bright array they seek the work of war, where high unfurled the ensign waxes in air. Shall I to Washington their praise recite? Enough! Thou know'st them in the fields of fight. Thee, first in peace and honors, we demand, the grace and glory of thy martial band. Famed for thy valor, for thy virtues more, hear every tongue thy guardian aid implore. Fixed are the eyes of the nations on the scales, for in their hopes Columbia's arm prevails. Anon Britannia droops the pensive head, while round increase the rising hills of dead. Ah, cruel blindness to Columbia's state, lament thy thirst of boundless power too late. Proceed, great chief, with virtue on thy side. Thy every action let the goddess guide. A crown, a mansion, and a throne that shine. With gold unfading, Washington be thine.
It is now my honor to introduce General George Washington.
Military representative here to present the Federal Union flag on behalf of the Second Continental Army.
Excellency hopes that the importance of the great cause we are engaged in will be deeply impressed upon every man's mind. Let us therefore, when everything dear and valuable to free men is at stake, when our unnatural parent is threatening us with destruction from every quarter, endeavor by all of the skill and discipline in our power to acquire that knowledge and conduct which is necessary in war. It is discipline that is the life and soul of an army, which is next under Providence, is to make us formidable to our enemies, honorable in ourselves, and respected in the world. Mr. Henry Knox is making great progress with his noble train of artillery, the heavy siege guns from Fort Ticonderoga. I expect him to arrive with 58 guns this very month. Future historians will marvel at his achievement and compare him to Hannibal crossing the Alps. I assure you, those guns will speak loudly soon. By authority granted by the Second Continental Congress, I hereby direct these continental colors, henceforth called the Great Union Flag, be raised on Prospect Hill, the most visible position in the American line.
Present the flag to General Washington. Detail, post to move the colors to the tower. Commander, bring your units to attention and present arms for the new colors.
Rest yard.
Somerville Department of Public Works, raise the colors! The mayor of Somerville now read us the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please, everybody, the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America. Let's hear your voices. One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Commanders, bring your units to order arms. Order guard, render a salute for the new flag. line of guidance. Fire a salute. Units, address your colors. Units that have to leave at this time are hereby dismissed. Everybody remain for the final part of the ceremony.
Before we close, I want to thank everybody who made today possible. I do want to start by acknowledging our elected officials who are with us today. State Rep Erica Eiderhoven, Somerville City Councilors, Emba, Strezzo, Wilson, Ewan Campett, Davis, thank you please for being here. The Somerville Museum, you did a fabulous job. The City of Somerville, DPW, the Somerville Police Department, participating units, reenactors, musicians, volunteers, city staff supporting today's events. I invite everybody who brought or made a flag to raise it proudly, and together we'll sing Stand By Me. So thank you for joining us today, and Happy New Year.
I brought a friend for this one, but please sing along.
The land is hard, and the moon is the only light we see. No, I won't be afraid. No, I won't be afraid. Just as long as you stand by me. So darling, darling, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Oh, stand now. Stand by me. Stand by me. If the sky that we look upon should stumble and fall, or the mountains should crumble to the sea, I won't cry, I won't cry, no, I won't shed a tear, just as long as you stand by me.